Be heard, be active, be social. InfoWarriors worldwide are logging on to the newest activist social network, PlanetInfowars.com. I'm Christy Hightower. This week on Planet InfoWars, follow Alex Jones in the official Bilderberg 2012 InfoWarriors official site. You can watch up-to-the-minute news, information, and live streams, all covering the globalist clandestine convention going on this week in Chantilly, Virginia. Create your own sites of activists and information on PlanetInfowars.com.
It's Monday, June 4th. It's the InfoWars Nightly News. I'm your host, Paul Joseph Watson. Coming up tonight.
Tonight, looking back on the huge success of Occupy Bilderberg 2012. Alex Jones recaps last week's conquest in Chantilly, Virginia. Then, the CFR wants the U.S. Army to enforce domestic law. And heavily armed troops are seen patrolling residential neighborhoods and even downtown areas of major U.S. cities. All that plus more coming up next on the InfoWars Nightly News.
Our top story on InfoWars Nightly News tonight. Bilderberg members label protesters, quote, cockroaches. Once again betraying their sneering arrogance towards the American people and the First Amendment, Bilderberg members attending their annual confab in Chantilly, Virginia this past weekend referred to protesters outside as, quote, cockroaches, according to one of the hotel employees at the Westfields Marriott. So basically, Charlie Skelton, of course, as you know, the London Guardian writer, he was able to grab a word with one of the staff as they were exiting the hotel complex. And this is the quote. Here's what a hotel employee told me as he drove through the gates of the hotel. He lowered his window and beckoned me over. Quote, I want to know that they call you people cockroaches. I work in the hotel and they asked me if those cockroaches were still out there. They meant you. So pot calling kettle black springs to mind again. These are the people, you know, Charlie Rose, Henry Kissinger, Tony Blair. They scuttle away as soon as anyone confronts them about Bilderberg. They're the ones who scatter like cockroaches when the spotlight of truth is shined on them. And yet all those protesters, you know, traveled hundreds of miles, in some cases thousands of miles, great expense, standing around all day in the heat, proclaiming their right to self-determination. They're the cockroaches, according to Bilderberg. And so again, you know, it illustrates the sneering contempt with which the elite views us. It's not just some kind of arrogant dismissal that they don't care about us. It's literally blood-boiling hatred. Remember the other story we had a couple of days before that, conversation in the hotel lobby. Bilderberg members wishing to see all the protesters outside loaded on a plane and have it crash. That's literally what they were discussing outside as they were arriving for the Bilderberg meeting. So they hate it. They hate the resistance to the agenda. We had stories beforehand from our source saying they hate the fact that it's, you know, record numbers of protests. And again, it just shows that resistance is victory. These are the most powerful people on the planet. And it irks the hell out of them to have 500 people stood outside bullhorning them. They can't stand it when people stand up to their agenda. They hate the resistance. So you've got elected politicians in there, John Kerry, Mitch Daniels. They're calling the very people who put them in office cockroaches. This is the sneering arrogance of the elite. Remember back in 2010 in Spain, overheard conversation again, where they decried the fact that protesters could even afford to travel, that the scum could even afford to travel to protest Bilderberg. That's how much they hate us. It's not just a dismissive contempt, it's blood-boiling rage. And again, this mainly comes out of this Guardian article which came out today, which has some other juicy little tidbits. Again, they've all come from the hotel staff because they're routinely treated rudely by Bilderberg members. It happens every year. So whereas they're sworn to secrecy in the first place, they're treated like crap by Henry Kissinger, and they eventually want to blow the whistle on their behavior inside the hotel. So this is where all this has come from. And just picture it. These are some of the richest people on the planet. You know, we're talking heads of Google, Microsoft, top CEOs of top corporations. These guys aren't short of money. And yet, how many tips did the hotel staff get? The answer is not a single one, not a single tip given by a Bilderberg member, according to this source who worked inside the hotel. So again, richest people on the planet don't even give anyone a tip, showing their contempt for the scum public. We also learned from this inside source the police didn't like what they were doing. Here's another quote. I was helping a cop move a security cordon near some trees when he lowered his voice and casually let slip, "We don't support Bilderberg, trust me." That's what one of the cops told Charlie Skelton. So again, you know, it's very well saying it after the fact. If they don't like Bilderberg, why are they arresting people for stepping off the curb for a matter of seconds? I mean, join us, become an American hero. The jobs are probably toast anyway within a year, 2 years, because Bilderberg deliberately wrecked the US economy. So it's amazing why some of these people don't, you know, break the barriers and come forward. But this has got to be the best one out of this inside source from the hotel. While the likes of Kissinger and his friends were slurping their soup, all the hotel staff were actually in the back watching our Ustream channel. Quote, we had a load of the hotel staff gathered around a computer in the back office watching Alex Jones, and they're all rooting for him, said one source. So all the hotel staff, treated like scum by Bilderberg, who calls us cockroaches, gave us the data dump on their behavior and then started watching our Ustream channel in the back room. And this is perhaps the most interesting leak, again, out of this inside hotel source. Quote, they don't just sit together in a big room. You've got the picture of them all in a huge conference room. That's not what happens. They have tons of separate rooms and they split up for the meetings. The first ones are after 4:30 on Thursday. So again, this lends credence to the fact of what we've been saying all along, which is that Bilderberg is broken up into all these little working groups on different issues. This is where they create the consensus to implement policy, as former NATO Secretary General Willie Claes admitted in a 2010 radio interview. So you've got one workshop on Syria, you'll have one on the euro, one on China and Russia, another one on the carbon tax agenda. Each little agenda is split up into different working groups taking place in different conference rooms. This is how they communicate the consensus to be then implemented by the individual attendees. So, you know, Kagan, Romney's foreign policy advisor, said it's just people getting together for a nice dinner and a nice chat. I don't think so. People don't jet halfway across the world for a nice dinner, game of golf, and a nice chat. And this revelation in particular shows that they are creating the consensus to implement policy in the global arena that affects us all. Major, major revelations from this inside source, and it's all contained in that article where they call us all cockroaches, which we'll go on to discuss more in this show. I'm going to go to a video now out of Bilderberg. Alex Jones calls end to diplomatic immunity at Bilderberg. And in this clip, Alex explains how the purpose of diplomatic immunity, as it was initially defined by the government, is now being abused by the likes of Bilderberg. Let's go to the clip.
There was a bunch of us standing there in the corner, and a couple of them ran, or one of them ran the lights. It was red, and went through. The cops sat there and watched them do it. And then there was other.
Well, you know why? I'm going to make a point. I want a federal law. We used to have this where you can't have diplomatic immunity except in your embassy. It started out where countries said, We have embassies with our state secrets under treaties. If you'll let us have an embassy, it means you can't come in it. It's our sovereign land. Then, about 60 years ago, the Rockefellers pushed for it to get Interpol and other systems set up within Interpol where the diplomats, the head diplomats, couldn't have their pouches messed with. Okay, then it was their suitcase. Then it was their car. Now it's their person. They've had cases where they run people over. In New York, it's happened in Houston, and they don't even get in trouble killing people. Yeah. They've been caught with sex slaves. They've been caught dealing drugs. They've been caught doing whatever they want. That's why the police can't stop them, because they have diplomatic immunity. Okay? Now, everybody keeps wondering why the police can't stop these people. Everybody keeps, hey, I want to make a point. This is important. This is very important. Everybody keeps wondering why the limousines with these diplomats can almost run people over and why they're above the law. Because they are, until we change the law. These people, most of them have diplomatic immunity. Now, diplomatic immunity started hundreds of years ago where countries like France and England said, okay, you can have a consulate, but it's our sovereign land, and you agree to never come in there, or we won't build a consulate in your country for diplomatic reasons. Then in the last 100 years, it was diplomatic pouches for just head diplomats. Now it's for all the sub-diplomats. Then it's their cars. Then it's their persons. And they have been caught all over the United States, but especially New York. This is the UN diplomats and all these countries' diplomats and all their minions, with sex slaves in their houses, with drugs, with all sorts of crimes, and nothing can be done to them. So, we need to change the laws in this country. These police probably haven't even thought of that, but that's why they're told they can't do anything to these people. Because it's a diplomatic, illegal event. That's why it violates law, because it's secret, it's run by private interests with diplomats and heads of state. This thing is completely illegal under the Logan Act, and these people have all got diplomatic immunity, complete federal law. That's a fraud, and it needs to be changed, because they're expanding diplomatic immunity to inland ports, where they can ship drugs in, you name it. They're trying to expand it to carbon taxes, where the private companies dealing in carbon taxes, and that needs to change. Everybody out there watching, diplomatic immunity. Think about the New World Order, the UN, these global banks. Why do they never get in trouble? Why can John Corzine steal billions at MF Global? Because it's all done under globalist agreements where they say they're above the law and pass all these unconstitutional laws making us slaves. They throw piles of laws on the citizens while writing all these new regulations, which aren't law, saying they're God. And now it's coming to a head with the United Nations and NATO. And if anybody doesn't believe this out there, just search. Obama says UN gives him directive for war, not Congress. Or Panetta, Secretary of Defense, tells Congress that the United Nations gives him orders. This country